Dr. Sarah pressed her face against the porthole of the deep-sea research vessel Prometheus, watching the ocean floor grow closer through the crystal-clear water. At 12,000 feet below the surface of the Pacific, sunlight had long since given up its battle against the crushing darkness. Only the submarine's powerful LED arrays illuminated the alien landscape of the abyssal plain. "Contact in 30 seconds, announced Captain Torres from the pilot's seat. His weathered hands moved across the controls with practiced precision, adjusting their descent rate as they approached the anomaly that had brought them here. Sarah's heart hammered against her ribs. 3 weeks ago, a routine geological survey had detected something impossible on the ocean floor. The sonar readings showed a perfectly geometric structure buried beneath centuries of sediment, its metallic composition unlike anything found naturally on Earth. When satellite imaging confirmed the discovery, the scientific community had erupted into chaos. "There," whispered Doctor the teams, pointing through his own porthole. "Do you see it?" Sarah followed his gaze and felt her breath catch in her throat. Rising from the like a metallic mountain was the unmistakable outline of a ship. But this was no human vessel that had met its fate in the depths. The craft stretched nearly 2 miles in length, its hull composed of a dark, iridescent material that seemed to absorb their lights rather than reflect them. Sweeping curves and impossible angles every principle of human engineering, creating a form that was both beautiful and utterly alien. "Jesus Christ," breathed Captain Torres. "The photos didn't do it justice." The ship rested partially buried in the sediment, tilted at a 40-degree angle that suggested it hadn't landed gently. Massive sections of the hull had been torn open, revealing glimpses of the interior structure. Strange symbols covered every visible surface, glowing faintly with an internal light that pulsed in rhythm with some unknown heartbeat. "Carbon dating of the surrounding sediment layers suggests this thing has been down here for at least 50,000 years, Doctor said, his voice trembling with excitement. "Maybe longer. It predates human civilization by tens of." Sarah activated the submarine's external cameras, recording everything as they made their approach. "The preservation is incredible. Whatever this material is, it's barely degraded despite being underwater for so long." As they drew closer, the true scale of the alien vessel became apparent. What had seemed like surface details from a distance revealed themselves to be massive structures. The strange symbols weren't carved into the hull. They were part of it, somehow integrated into the very atomic structure of the metal. Each one was the size of a city block. "Look at those breach points," Captain Torres observed, maneuvering the submarine toward the largest opening in the ship's side. "Something hit this thing hard. You can see impact patterns consistent with weapons fire." "Weapons fire?" Sarah leaned forward. "You mean this ship was in a battle?" "Had to be. See those scorch marks along the hull, and the way the metal is twisted outward from the breach points. This ship didn't just crash, it was shot down." The implications sent a chill down Sarah's spine. If this alien vessel had been destroyed in combat, what had it been fighting? And more importantly, where were the victors now? They approached the main breach in the ship's hull, a gaping wound nearly 300 feet wide that offered a glimpse into the vessel's interior. Captain Torres activated the submarine's floodlights, and the beam penetrated deep into the alien ship's bowels. "My God," Doctor whispered. The interior comprehension. Massive chambers stretched away into darkness, their walls lined with the same glowing symbols that covered the exterior. Geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly twisted through three-dimensional space in ways that seemed to violate the laws of physics. Corridors branched off in impossible directions, curving upward and downward simultaneously. "The architecture doesn't make sense," Sarah said, frantically taking notes. "It's like they built this ship according to different rules of geometry." "Maybe they did," Doctor replied. "We're dealing with a species that achieved interstellar travel while humans were still learning to make fire. Their understanding of physics could be completely beyond our comprehension." Captain Torres piloted the submarine deeper into the breach, navigating carefully between twisted beams of alien metal. The ship's interior was filled with seawater now, but Sarah could see evidence of atmospheric chambers that had once been sealed. Emergency bulkheads had closed automatically when the ship was damaged, preserving sections of the vessel's internal environment for thousands of years. "There," Sarah pointed to a structure near the center of the visible area. "That looks like it might be a command center." The structure rose from the ship's floor like a crystalline tree, its branches spreading out to connect with various control surfaces throughout the chamber. Even damaged and flooded, it retained an organic beauty that spoke of technology far beyond human achievement. "We need to get inside," Doctor said. "The amount of information we could gather from even a cursory examination would revolutionize our understanding of physics, materials science, biology, everything." "Slow down, Doc," Captain Torres warned. "This is just a reconnaissance mission. We're here to confirm the discovery and assess the site for a full expedition." But Sarah was already thinking ahead. "We'll need specialized equipment, underwater drilling rigs to clear sediment, atmospheric processors to create breathable spaces, pressure suits rated for these depths. This is going to be the largest archaeological undertaking in human history." As they continued their survey, more details of the alien ship became visible. What they had initially taken for decorative elements were actually functional components. Crystalline formations that pulsed with stored energy, metallic vines that served as some kind of circulatory system, chambers that might have housed the ship's crew. "Look at this," Doctor called out, directing their attention to a section of hull near the breach. "These impact patterns are too regular to be random weapons fire. Whatever attacked this ship was using some kind of energy weapon that fired in calculated bursts." Sarah examined the damage patterns through the camera feed. "You're right. The spacing between impacts follows a mathematical progression. This wasn't a chaotic battle, it was a systematic execution." The thought was sobering. They weren't just looking at the remains of an ancient spacecraft. They were examining a crime scene 50,000 years old. Some force had deliberately hunted down and destroyed this vessel, leaving it to sink into the ocean depths. "Captain, are you getting these readings?" Doctor's voice carried a note of concern. "The counter is picking up low-level radiation emanating from the ship's core." Captain Torres checked his instruments. "Confirmed. It's not dangerous at our current distance, but whatever's powering this thing is still active after all these years." "Still active?" Sarah felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension. "That's impossible. No power source we know of could function for 50. "Which proves we're dealing with technology far beyond our current understanding," Doctor said. "The implications are staggering. If we could reverse engineer their power systems, energy scarcity would become a thing of the past." As they completed their initial survey of the ship's exterior, Sarah noticed something that made her blood run cold. "Captain, take us around to the other side of the vessel. I want to see the stern section." The submarine's lights swept across the alien ship's length as they navigated around its massive bulk. What they found confirmed Sarah's worst fears. The stern of the vessel had been completely destroyed, not by weapons fire, but by some kind of massive explosion from within. "They scuttled their own ship," she whispered. "Whatever was attacking them, the crew decided it was better to destroy their own vessel than let it fall into enemy hands." "But why?" Doctor asked. "What could they have been carrying that was worth destroying their entire ship to protect?" The answer came as they examined the debris field around the stern. Scattered across the ocean floor were fragments of the ship's interior, and among them, Sarah spotted something that made her heart race. Crystalline containers, each one the size of a shipping container, lay broken open on the seabed. Whatever they had once contained was long gone, but the containers themselves told a story. "Those are containment units," she said. "This wasn't just a warship or exploration vessel, it was carrying something valuable enough to die for rather than surrender." Captain Torres brought the submarine to a hover above the debris field. "We need to report this immediately. The implications of what we found here go far beyond archaeology." Sarah nodded, but her mind was already racing ahead to the next phase of the expedition. They had discovered proof that humanity was not alone in the universe, that intelligent life had visited Earth long before the first human had ever looked up at the stars. But they had also found evidence of an ancient war, a conflict so devastating that one side had chosen annihilation over defeat. "There's something else," Doctor said quietly. He was studying the sonar readings of the surrounding area. "We're not looking at just one ship. There are at least a dozen other contacts buried in the sediment within a 5-mile radius. This isn't a crash site, it's a battlefield." The magnitude of the discovery hit Sarah like a physical blow. They weren't just looking at a single ancient spacecraft. They had found the remains of an entire fleet. Ships that had fought and died in Earth's oceans before human civilization had even begun. "We need to get back to the surface," Captain Torres said. "This is bigger than any of us imagined." As the submarine began its ascent toward the distant surface, Sarah took one last look at the alien vessel through the porthole. The ship's glowing symbols pulsed in the darkness like a heartbeat that refused to die, a message from an ancient civilization that had traveled across the galaxy only to meet their end in Earth's depths. But even as they rose toward the world of sunlight and air above, Sarah knew this was only the beginning. The discovery of the alien fleet would change everything: humanity's understanding of its place in the universe, the history of Earth itself, and perhaps most importantly, the future of the human race. Because if one ancient civilization had fought and died in these waters 50,000 years ago, what guarantee was there that their enemies wouldn't return to finish what they had started? The alien ship below them wasn't just an archaeological treasure. It was a warning from the past, a testament to a war that might not be over. As the pressure decreased and they climbed toward the surface, Sarah made a silent promise to the alien crew who had died defending their secret. She would uncover the truth of what had happened in these waters so long ago. She would learn who they had been, what they had been protecting, and why they had chosen death over surrender. But most importantly, she would prepare humanity for the possibility that the ancient enemy might one day return to claim what they had been 50 ago. The discovery of the alien ship was just the first chapter in a story that could determine the fate of every living thing on Earth. The submarine continued its ascent through the crushing darkness, carrying with it the most important discovery in human history, and the seeds of a future that none of them could have imagined. 6 months after the initial discovery, the ocean above the alien graveyard buzzed with activity that would have been impossible to imagine just a year ago. The research station New Horizon floated on the surface like a technological city, its massive platform supporting everything from deep-sea drilling equipment to atmospheric processors capable of creating breathable environments 12,000 feet underwater. Doctor adjusted her pressure suit one final time before stepping into the diving bell that would take her down to Excavation Site Alpha. As the mission's lead engineer, she had spent the last half-year designing the most ambitious underwater construction project in human history. Today, they would finally breach the inner sanctum of the largest alien vessel. "Final systems check," announced Lieutenant Commander Jackson through the comm system. The military had taken official control of the operation 3 months ago, though they had been wise enough to keep the scientific team in charge of the actual research. Doctor, you are cleared for descent." Sarah sealed her helmet and gave a thumbs up. The two women had become close friends during the months of preparation, bonded by their shared obsession with uncovering the secrets of the alien fleet. Doctor completed their 3-person team, his expertise in proving invaluable as they worked to understand the alien technology. The diving bell detached from the platform and began its descent toward through the reinforced windows, watched the sunlight fade to deep blue, then to the familiar black of the abyss. But today was different from their previous dives. Today, lights glowed in the darkness below them, artificial lights powered by human technology, marking the location of their excavation site. "Approaching the habitat," announced their pilot chief petty officer, "docking in 2 minutes." Felt her pulse quicken as their destination came into view. The underwater habitat was a marvel of engineering that she had helped design, a pressurized dome large enough to house a small research station, constructed directly adjacent to the main breach in the alien ship's hull. Flexible corridors extended from the habitat into the vessel itself, creating a network of breathable spaces within the ancient craft. The diving bell docked with a soft clang and was the first through the airlock. The habitat's interior was cramped but functional, filled with monitoring equipment and research stations. Through the transparent aluminum windows, the alien ship loomed like a sleeping giant, its hull now partially cleared of sediment by months of careful excavation. "Welcome back to the abyss," joked Dr. Reeves, the mission's senior archaeologist who had been living in the habitat for the past 2 weeks. "I trust you brought coffee." "Better than coffee," Sarah replied, hefting a container of specialized equipment. "We brought the quantum resonance scanner. If there's anything still active in the ship's core, this will find it." Moved to the main observation window and stared into the alien vessel's interior. The past months had revealed wonders beyond imagination. The ship's corridors were filled with technology that seemed to blend organic and mechanical elements seamlessly. Control surfaces that responded to touch, displaying information in symbols that slowly yielded their meaning to the team's linguists. Chambers that had once housed crew members, though the occupants themselves had long since vanished, leaving only faint impressions in the walls. "Any word from the other sites?" Doctor asked as he unpacked his equipment. "Site Beta made a breakthrough yesterday," Dr. Reeves replied. "They found what appears to be a data storage facility. Dr. Harrison thinks she can interface our computers with their systems, though she's being extremely cautious about introducing any kind of digital contamination." Nodded approvingly. The alien technology was so advanced that there was a real risk of accidentally damaging it with crude human computer systems. Every interaction had to be carefully planned and monitored. "What about Site Gamma?" Sarah asked. Dr. Reeves' expression darkened. "They've found something disturbing, evidence that the aliens weren't alone down there. There are human remains in that ship, Sarah, but they predate any known human presence in the Pacific by at least 40,000 years. The revelation hit the team like a physical blow, felt her worldview shifting once again, a sensation she had grown uncomfortably familiar with since the discovery. How is that possible? "We don't know yet. The remains are being analyzed topside, but preliminary results suggest they're anatomically modern humans. The implications are staggering. Either human civilization is far older than we believed, or these aliens had contact with early human populations." Turned back to the window, staring into the alien ship with new eyes. If humans had been involved in this ancient conflict, everything they thought they knew about the history of their species was wrong. "We need to get to the core chamber," she said. "Whatever answers we're looking for, they're going to be in the ship's central systems." The team spent the next hour preparing for their deepest penetration into the alien vessel. The quantum resonance scanner was delicate equipment that required careful handling in the pressurized environment. Checked and rechecked the atmospheric processors that would keep their air supply clean as they moved through the ship's corridors. Finally, they were ready. The airlock cycled and they stepped into the alien craft itself. The sensation was unlike anything had experienced. The corridor stretched ahead of them, its walls alive with the soft glow of alien symbols. But it wasn't just the visual impact that was overwhelming. There was something else, a feeling that the ship was aware of their presence. The symbols seemed to pulse in rhythm with their heartbeats, and she could swear she heard a faint humming that had nothing to do with their equipment. "The atmospheric readings are stable," Sarah reported. "Whatever they used to pressurize this ship, it's still working after all these years." They moved deeper into the vessel, following corridor maps that Doctor had painstakingly created over the past months. The ship's layout human logic, with passages that curved through impossible geometries and chambers that seemed larger inside than their external dimensions should allow. "There," Doctor pointed ahead, "the central core should be just beyond that chamber." They emerged into a vast spherical room at the heart of the alien ship. His breath caught in her throat as she took in the sight. The chamber was dominated by a massive crystalline structure that pulsed with internal light, sending patterns of energy cascading through conduits that ran throughout the ship. But it was what surrounded the crystal that made her blood run cold. Bodies, dozens of them, preserved perfectly in the chamber's unique atmosphere. But these weren't human remains. They were the aliens themselves, the first intact specimens the expedition had discovered. "My God," whispered Doctor, "they're beautiful." The aliens were tall, perhaps 8 feet in height, with elongated limbs and features that managed to be both utterly foreign and strangely familiar. Their skin had a translucent quality that revealed complex circulatory systems beneath, and their large eyes held an intelligence that seemed to transcend death itself. But the engineer's mind was focused on something else. "Look at their positions," she said. "They're not random. Each one is connected to the central crystal through some kind of interface." Sarah activated the quantum resonance scanner and began taking readings. "You're not going to believe this. These beings aren't dead, they're in some kind of suspended animation. The crystal is maintaining their life signs." After 50,000 years, moved closer to examine the connections between the aliens and their central crystal. The technology was beyond anything humans had achieved, but she could see the basic principle. The crystal was serving as a collective consciousness, keeping the crew's minds active while their bodies remained in stasis. "They're dreaming," Doctor said with wonder in his voice. "An entire crew dreaming together for 50." began setting up her equipment to interface with the alien systems. If she could establish a connection without damaging their technology, they might be able to communicate with these ancient beings. The implications were staggering. First-hand accounts of the ancient war, knowledge of alien technology, perhaps even information about the enemy that had driven them to this desperate measure. "Wait," Sarah said, studying her scanner readings more carefully. "There's something wrong. The power levels are fluctuating. The crystal is failing." Felt her heart sink. How long do they have? Based on the degradation patterns, maybe weeks. The system that's kept them alive for 50,000 years is finally breaking down. The moral implications hit like a tsunami. They had found a crew of living aliens, the first contact between humanity and an extraterrestrial intelligence. But these beings were dying, their life support system finally succumbing to the ravages of time. Did they have the right to wake them up? Could they even save them if they tried? "We have to try to communicate," Doctor said. "This may be our only chance to speak with them before they're gone forever." Nodded, her hands flying over her equipment as she worked to establish an interface with the alien system. The quantum resonance scanner provided a bridge between human technology and the crystalline matrix that held the alien's consciousness. "I'm getting something," she reported. "The crystal is responding to our signals." The chamber filled with a harmonic vibration that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The symbols on the walls began pulsing faster and felt a presence touch her mind, ancient, wise, and infinitely sad. Images flooded her consciousness. She saw the alien ship in its glory days, sailing between the stars with a crew dedicated to exploration and discovery. She saw them arrive at Earth, a young planet teeming with primitive life. They had come seeking knowledge, hopping to catalog the early stages of biological evolution. But they had not been alone. Another species had followed them across the galaxy, beings of pure malevolence who saw all other life as an obstacle to their expansion. The hunters had found the explorers at Earth, and a desperate battle had ensued in the planet's oceans. Saw the moment of desperate decision when the alien captain had ordered the ship's destruction rather than let their technology fall into enemy hands. But in their final moments, the crew had chosen a different path. They had downloaded their consciousness into the ship's central core, hoping that someday another intelligence might find them and learn from their sacrifice. "They're trying to tell us something," gasped, struggling to process the flood of information. "There's a warning, the hunters, they're still out there." The alien presence in her mind grew stronger, and she saw images of space, of distant star systems where the hunters continued their campaign of destruction. But she also saw something else: hope. The aliens had hidden something in their ship, technology that could help humanity defend itself when the hunters inevitably returned. "Where?" asked aloud. "Where did you hide it?" The response came not in words, but in pure knowledge, downloaded directly into her consciousness. Coordinates within the ship, the location of a hidden chamber that contained the aliens' greatest weapon against the hunters. But even as the information flooded her mind, felt the alien presence growing weaker. The crystal's power was fading, and with it, the consciousness of beings who had waited 50,000 years to deliver their warning. "They're dying," Sarah said, tears streaming down her face. "The system is shutting down." Watched as the light in the aliens' eyes began to fade. One by one, the beings who had dreamed together began their final journey into darkness. But even as they died, they continued transmitting, desperate to pass on their knowledge before it was too late. The central crystal gave a final pulse of brilliant light, then went dark. The chamber fell silent except for the sound of the team's breathing. The first and last conversation between humanity and an alien intelligence was over. "They gave us everything," whispered. "Their history, their technology, their warning about the hunters. They sacrificed their own lives to arm us for a war we don't even know is coming." Doctor was already moving toward the coordinates the aliens had provided, using his scanner to locate the hidden chamber. "Here," he called out. "There's a concealed entrance behind this wall." Helped him activate the alien opening mechanism, and a section of the wall opened to reveal a chamber beyond. Inside, floating in a matrix of energy fields, was a device that description. It seemed to exist partially outside of normal space, its surfaces shifting through dimensions that human eyes couldn't properly focus on. "It's a weapon," said, the knowledge downloaded from the dying aliens helping her understand what she was seeing. But not just any weapon. It's designed specifically to fight the hunters, to exploit weaknesses in their technology that took the aliens to discover. Sarah was taking readings of the device with every instrument they had. The energy output is beyond measurement. If we could reverse engineer this technology, we could defend ourselves when they come back, finished. Because they will come back. The aliens were certain of that. The hunters don't give up and they don't forgive. Earth is marked now as a source of resistance, and they'll return to finish what they started 50,000 years ago. As they prepared to return to the surface with their incredible discovery, took one last look at the chamber where the alien crew had spent their final moments. They had been explorers like herself, scientists and engineers who had crossed the galaxy in pursuit of knowledge. And in the end, they had given everything to ensure that another species would have a chance to survive the hunter's return. The quantum resonance scanner beeped softly, indicating that it had successfully recorded every detail of the alien technology and the knowledge they had shared. Secured the device carefully, it now contained the most important information in human history. As they made their way back through the ship's corridors toward the habitat, his mind was already racing ahead to the challenges that lay before them. They had found proof that humanity was not alone in the universe, but they had also learned that the galaxy was a far more dangerous place than anyone had imagined. The aliens' warning was clear. The hunters were still out there, and they would return to Earth eventually. When they did, humanity would need to be ready with weapons and technology beyond anything they had ever imagined. The ancient aliens had given them the tools to fight back, but it would be up to the human race to forge them into a defense that could protect not just Earth, but every living thing in the galaxy. The war that had begun 50,000 years ago was far from over. In fact, realized with a mixture of terror and determination, it was just beginning. 2 years had passed since the discovery of the alien weapon, and the world had changed in ways that no one could have predicted. General stood in the command center of Orbital Defense Station 1, watching through reinforced windows as construction crews put the finishing touches on humanity's first line of defense against the returning hunters. The station was a marvel of human and alien engineering combined, built using technology reverse-engineered from the ancient ship. Its hull was composed of the same dark, iridescent material that had protected the alien vessels, while its weapon systems incorporated principles that human scientists were still struggling to fully understand. General, we're receiving priority communication from Deep Sight Alpha, announced Lieutenant Torres, the general's aide. Doctor says they've made a breakthrough. General nodded, her weathered face betraying none of the excitement she felt. Had become humanity's foremost expert on alien technology, spending the past 2 years in the underwater research facility that had been built around the original crash site. If she was calling with news of a breakthrough, it could only mean one thing. Put her through to the main screen. The holographic display activated, showing space transmitted from 12,000 feet below the ocean's surface. Behind her, General could see the familiar interior of the alien ship, now fully excavated and converted into humanity's most advanced research laboratory. General, we've done it, said without preamble. We've successfully integrated the alien navigation system with our computer networks. We know where they came from, and more importantly, we know where the hunters went after the battle. General felt her pulse quicken. For 2 years, humanity had been preparing for the return of the alien hunters, but they had been operating blindly, not knowing when or where the enemy might appear. If it managed to access the aliens' navigational data, it could give them the strategic advantage they desperately needed. Show me, the general commanded. The display shifted to show a 3-dimensional map of the local galaxy, with star systems marked in different colors according to the alien classification system. His voice continued as the map rotated, highlighting various regions. The original aliens, who call themselves the Keepers, were part of a vast galactic civilization that spanned thousands of worlds. They were scientists and explorers, dedicated to studying and preserving life throughout the galaxy. But they weren't the only advanced species. The map zoomed in on a region of space that glowed an ominous red. The hunters are called the Devourers, and they're exactly what their name suggests. They consume entire civilizations, stripping worlds of resources and life before moving on to the next target. The Keepers had been fighting them before the battle at Earth. What about the current situation? General asked. Where are the Devourers now? His expression darkened. That's the problem, General. According to the navigational logs, the Devourers didn't retreat after the battle here. They moved deeper into the galaxy, systematically destroying every keeper outpost and colony world they could find. The civilization that created this ship is gone. We may be the last intelligent species left in this region of space. The implications hit General like a physical blow. Humanity had spent 2 years preparing to defend themselves against the return of an alien enemy, but they had never considered that they might be the only ones left to fight. There's more, continued. The Keeper ship's logs contain detailed information about Devourer tactics and technology. They're not just conquerors, they're harvesters. They consume the knowledge and technology of every species they destroy, making themselves stronger with each victory. How long do we have? General asked the question that everyone had been dreading. Consulted her data. Based on the Devourers' historical patterns and their last known trajectory, they should return to this region of space within the next 18 months. When they do, they'll be expecting to find a dead world, devoid of the technology that defeated them the first time. But instead, they're going to find us, General said with grim satisfaction. That's right, and thanks to the Keeper technology, we'll be ready for them. The display shifted again, showing footage from the various defense installations that had been constructed around Earth and throughout the solar system. Orbital stations bristled with weapons that could tear through space-time itself. Moon bases housed manufacturing facilities that could produce fleets of defender ships in a matter of weeks. Mars had been converted into a fortress world, its surface covered with massive defensive arrays. But the crowning achievement was the network of quantum communication relays that allowed instant communication across interstellar distances. Using principles learned from the Keeper technology, humanity had established contact with any surviving outposts of galactic civilization, hoping to find allies in the coming war. General, continued, there's something else you need to know. The Keeper ship's artificial intelligence is still partially functional. We've managed to establish limited communication with it, and it's provided us with the location of other Keeper caches throughout the galaxy. General leaned forward. Other caches. Weapons, technology, possibly even other ships. The Keepers knew they were losing the war, so they hid caches of their most advanced technology on worlds throughout the galaxy, hoping that someday a species would emerge that could use them to fight back against the Devourers. And now that species is us. Nodded, humanity has become the inheritor of the Keeper legacy. Their technology, their knowledge, their responsibility to protect life in the galaxy, it's all ours now. The conversation was interrupted by an alert from the station's sensor array. Lieutenant Torres quickly accessed the incoming data and turned to General with barely contained excitement. General, we're detecting an artificial signal from the outer system. It's using Keeper communication protocols. General felt her heart race. On screen, the main display activated, showing a static-filled image that gradually resolved into a figure that was unmistakably alien. But this wasn't one of the tall, graceful Keepers they had found in the ship. This being was shorter, more compact, with multiple arms and eyes that glowed with internal light. Humans of Earth, the alien said in accented but understandable English. I am Ambassador Vex of the Hegemony Alliance. We have been monitoring your activities and are impressed by your rapid advancement. We offer alliance in the war against the Devourers. General exchanged glances with her staff. They had hoped to find allies, but they hadn't expected them to find humanity first. Ambassador Vex, she replied, we accept your offer to talk, but understand that we've learned to be cautious when dealing with unknown species. The alien's expression shifted into what might have been a smile. Wise, the Devourers often use deception as a weapon, but we bring proof of our intentions. The display shifted to show a fleet of ships approaching the outer edge of the solar system. The vessels were clearly alien in design, but they broadcast the same identification codes that the Keeper ship had used to mark friendly forces. We are the last survivors of the hegemony, Ambassador Vex continued. Once we numbered in the billions, spread across dozens of worlds. Now we are less than 1 million refugees fleeing the Devourers' advance, but we bring with us knowledge of their weaknesses and experience in fighting them. His voice came from the underwater facility. General, the Keeper AI is confirming the Ambassador's story. The hegemony was one of their allied civilizations, specializing in military technology and tactics. General made her decision. Ambassador Vex, you and your fleet are welcome in our system. We have much to discuss and little time to do it in. Over the following days, the solar system became the staging ground for the most unlikely alliance in galactic history. The surviving hegemony forces brought with them weapons and ships that complemented humanity's Keeper-derived technology. More importantly, they brought first-hand experience of fighting the Devourers. Returned to the surface to participate in the strategic planning sessions, bringing with her complete technical specifications for every piece of Keeper technology they had managed to reverse engineer. The underwater facility continued its work under the supervision of her assistants, extracting every scrap of information from the ancient alien ship. The Devourers' greatest strength is their ability to adapt, Ambassador Vex explained during one of the strategy meetings. They study each enemy they face and modify their tactics accordingly, but this is also their weakness. They rely on past patterns and expect their enemies to behave predictably. General studied the tactical displays that covered the walls of the war room. Then we need to be unpredictable, hit them with weapons and tactics they've never seen before. Exactly, Vex replied. The Keepers fought them using conventional space warfare, ships against ships, technology against technology. But humans have shown a remarkable ability to think outside the parameters of normal military doctrine. Looked up from her technical schematics. What about the quantum disruptor we found in the Keeper ship? We still don't fully understand how it works, but our simulations suggest it could destabilize their entire fleet if deployed correctly. Too dangerous, General said immediately. If we don't understand the technology completely, we risk destroying ourselves along with them. But was already shaking her head. General, I've been studying the Keeper AI's records for months now. I think I understand what they were planning to do with this weapon. It's not just a ship killer. It's designed to disrupt the dimensional interfaces that the Devourers use to travel between star systems. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. If was right, they might have a weapon that could not only defeat the Devourer fleet, but trap them in normal space, preventing them from retreating to continue their campaign of destruction elsewhere. Show me, General commanded. Activated a holographic projector, displaying a three-dimensional representation of local space around Earth. The Devourers travel by creating temporary tiers in space-time, allowing them to move instantly between star systems. But the quantum disruptor could theoretically collapse those tiers, stranding them here. And then, asked Ambassador Vex. And then we destroy them completely, said with quiet determination. No survivors, no retreats, no possibility of them regrouping elsewhere. This could be the end of the Devourer threat forever. General studied the tactical projections carefully. It was an incredibly risky strategy, one that could backfire catastrophically if its understanding of the alien technology was flawed. But it was also their best chance of ending the threat permanently. How long do you need to prepare the weapon? She asked. 6 months, maybe 8 if we encounter unexpected problems. But General, there's something else. Using the quantum disruptor will require someone to interface directly with the Keeper technology. The process is extremely dangerous. There's a good chance whoever does it won't survive. Its words hung in the air like a death sentence. They had found a weapon that could save the galaxy, but using it would require the ultimate sacrifice from whoever operated it. I'll do it, said quietly. I know the technology better than anyone. If someone has to die to stop the Devourers, it should be me. General started to protest, but cut her off. General, this is what the Keepers died for. They gave their lives to pass this technology on to us, and now it's our turn to make the same sacrifice. The question is whether we're willing to pay the price for victory. Ambassador Vex spoke up from across the table. There may be another way. The hegemony has developed technology that allows consciousness to be transferred to synthetic bodies, if the human operator were to undergo the procedure before attempting the interface. It's experimental, said, having studied the hegemony's technical data. Only a 30% survival rate, and even then the synthetic body would have a limited. But it's a chance, General said, better than certain death. Nodded slowly. Then that's what we'll do. Start preparing the synthetic body technology while I finish work on the quantum disruptor. When the Devourers arrive, we'll be ready for them. As the meeting broke up and the various teams dispersed to their tasks, found herself standing alone in the war room, starring at the holographic display of Earth and its defensive installations. In 18 months, this peaceful blue world would become the site of the most important battle in galactic history. The ancient keepers had fought and died to give humanity this chance. Now it was up to her and her species to ensure that their sacrifice had not been in vain. The quantum disruptor would be ready, the defensive fleets would be in position, and the alliance with the hegemony would give them the tactical advantages they needed. But most importantly, would be ready to make the same sacrifice that the Keeper crew had made 50,000 years ago. She would interface with technology beyond human understanding, using her own life force to power a weapon that could save not just Earth, but every living thing in the galaxy. The Devourers had spent believing that they were the ultimate predators, the apex of galactic evolution. But they had never encountered anything like humanity before, a species that could adapt, improvise, and sacrifice everything for the sake of others. When they returned to Earth expecting to find a dead world, they would instead find the inheritors of the Keeper legacy, armed with ancient technology and human ingenuity. The final battle for the galaxy was about to begin, and was determined that when it ended, the age of the Devourers would be over forever. The ancient alien ship in the depths of the ocean pulsed one final time with residual energy, its purpose at last fulfilled. The weapon it had carried across the galaxy had found its way into human hands, and the warning its crew had died to deliver had been heard. The circle was complete, and the real war could finally begin.